A Halloween costume gives an unpopular fiesta on the wall. A staff member who's watching him asks his boss, Biondo, to let him rest. The man ignores this and says that the child they're looking for lives in the city. Drained, the artist faints. Meanwhile, Mikhail rides his bike just past the harbor and arrives at a costume shop, hoping to buy a Spider-Man costume. However, the store is closed, so he plans to return later. Heading to class. There, Mikhail secretly films his crush, Stella. The teacher catches him and confiscates his phone, urging him to finish his math test. Suddenly, his mother, Giovanna, a policewoman, shows up. She announces that their classmate, Martino, has been missing for 2 days, so she asks them to persuade him to return if they see him. Afterward, Giovanna approaches Mikhail and hands him money for his snack. Embarrassed, he doesn't look at her when he takes it. He then sees the bullies, Brando and Ivan, teasing him, but his nose bleeds, so he goes to the washroom. When he hears the school bell ring, the boy hides in the cubicle. Still, Brando and Ivan drag him out and steal his money. When Mikhail objects, Ivan mocks that he doesn't have a father who can save him. Triggered, Mikhail insults Ivan, so he gives the kid 10 seconds to run. Mikhail sprints as Ivan shoots him with a paintball gun until he trips while other students just watch. Arriving home, Mario, their dog, and Candela, the housekeeper's daughter, greet Mikhail. In his room, he confirms his attendance at Stella's Halloween party just before Candela walks in. Ignoring the young girl's chatter, Mikhail retrieves the money from a box and wonders what he could buy with it. Suddenly, Candela tugs his Murphy bed, and Mikhail rushes to save her from getting hit. The girl is amazed by his reflexes, but teases him that the bed's useless as he doesn't have friends. Determined, Mikhail goes to an antique store where the vendor offers him a suit of a supposedly well-known superhero. Though he isn't impressed, Mikhail doesn't have much choice. In her office, Giovanna watches Martino's farewell message to his parents. She finds this strange because the boy didn't have family issues and vanished the day before he was supposed to attend the Math Olympics. At home, Giovanna sees her son sulking on the couch, hesitant to go in his awful costume. The woman assures him that his outfit is unique, but when the teen imagines his father as a superhero, Giovanna evades the topic. She urges Mikhail to go or his crush will be disappointed. At the party, Stella spots Mikhail, but Brando makes fun of the latter's costume. Mikhail argues it's a superhero suit from China. Hearing this, Stella shares that she lived there for a year. The girl adds that she now likes Trieste because of the sea. Suddenly, Brando plays video footage of Stella. She quickly turns the TV off and Ivan reveals that the videos were from Mikhail's phone. Panicked, Mikhail hides in the bathroom, begging to become invisible. Just then, the power goes out and Mikhail flees through the window. The next day, Mikhail awakens in his costume as Mario looks concerned. The boy passes by the mirror and appears headless, but he doesn't notice it. While brushing his teeth, he discovers that he can't see his face and arms. Shocked, he dashes to his large mirror and removes his robe, realizing that he's invisible. Giovanna walks in but can't see him. Instead, she spots Mario hiding, and as she calls the dog to come out, Mikhail writes a note saying he left early. After his mother and dog leave, Mikhail wonders what to do now. He heads to school fully clothed. When he sees Stella, he remembers her party and gets embarrassed. He's about to leave when he sees Ivan with his paint pistol. Inspired by an idea, Mikhail takes off his clothes and enters the school, unaware that a man is watching him. During class, Mikhail takes Ivan's toy gun, fires at the board while the teacher writes, then throws it at Ivan. When the teacher sees the latter holding the toy, she becomes enraged. As she complains to the principal, Mikhail sneaks in, looking for his math test, and grabs the answer key from the drawer to copy it. Afterward, Mikhail disturbs Brando's tennis match by startling and making him miss his shot. The boy loses the game, making his father mad. Alone, Brando sees a tennis ball fall and tries to pick it up, but it rolls into the cubicle. Then he hears a voice, and the ball is hurled at him, making him run in fear. Mikhail then follows Stella into the shower room. When a girl throws a towel in his direction, he slowly becomes visible again. Panicked, he stays still, and Stella removes the towel, revealing him to the others. Having been called for the incident, Giovanna advises Mikhail that dating is a process and taking off one's clothes comes last. Unable to explain his side, Mikhail remains quiet, and his mother notices his regret. To cheer him up, Giovanna offers beer and they both smile. The teenager attempts to tell the truth but hesitates. Suddenly, his nose bleeds just as Giovanna receives a call about Brando's disappearance. The next day, police psychologist Giorgio assures the students that feeling alienated from loved ones is part of growing up, but running away isn't the solution. Meanwhile, Mikhail's classmate tosses a crumpled paper at him, calling him a maniac. Embarrassed, the boy throws it away but notices that his arms have become transparent again. Anxious, Mikhail covers it with his jacket and is relieved it's almost lunchtime. Seeing him sulking, Giorgio approaches the boy, but the bell rings, so he flees. In his room, he finds Candela reading his comics. He turns his back on her and demands she leave. However, with his back to her, Candela slams the door without leaving to trick him. When Mikhail takes off his scarf and hood, Candela screams in shock. Later, Mikhail explains that his invisibility may have activated while he was asleep because he didn't feel anything strange with the costume. Candela thinks it could be magic pajamas, and he agrees. Still, the young girl worries about when he'll return to normal, which Mikhail worries about too. Despite this, Candela thinks he's now the superhero Invisible Boy, who saves people in danger. Mikhail disagrees as he believes he's just a loser. In their office, Giorgio implies that the students' disappearances are voluntary, suspecting the competition pressured Martino and Brando is scared of his overbearing father. Giovanna soon arrives home, so Mikhail hastily removes his clothing. She checks his room and doesn't see her son, so she leaves to answer the ringing phone. Mikhail follows her and hears that his grandmother has called. Giovanna admits to her mother that she worries about her son because his personality is changing and he got into trouble. This makes her fear that Mikhail found out that he's adopted. The revelation hurts the teen, so he runs off. He glumly stares at the sea while on the swings to clear his head when Stella arrives and sees the swing moving. Although she cannot see him, she approaches and sits on the other swing, curious. She wonders if he's a ghost, but he claims that he's an angel. Mikhail then draws a blank face on the sand, but Stella adds a smile to it. Befriending the mysterious being, she dares him on who could swing the highest. She shares her mother's warnings about talking to strangers, and Mikhail says that, unlike her, he doesn't have a mother. Stella feels his sadness and consoles him with candy, but he declines. When it's time for her gymnastic training, she leaves, hoping they'll meet again. While watching her leave, Mikhail sees a man standing from a distance but assumes that the stranger is blind. The next day, the boy, now visible again, apologizes to Stella in class, and she accepts. When he sees her drawing a smile, he looks pleased. Mikhail visits Stella that evening while invisible. When he sneezes, she covers him with a blanket, and they kiss. During this, Mikhail becomes visible again, so he flees through the window before Stella discovers who he is. Later, Candela urges Mikhail to be honest with Stella, so he decides to go to her while walking Mario. Meanwhile, Stella is training alone at the school gym when a man tranquilizes her. When Mikhail arrives, he sees the masked man carrying an unconscious Stella. Alarmed, the boy attacks him but gets knocked down. As the kidnapper puts Stella in the car, Mikhail recovers and leaps on him, causing the stranger to stumble. Then, Mario bites his wrist, but the guy throws the dog. The man then drives away, but the teenager clings to the steering wheel and tries to remove the mask. However, he slips and the kidnapper escapes. Later, the authorities are called in. Giovanna assures her son that he and Mario did everything they could to save Stella. Elsewhere, Stella awakens in a lab while being examined. After monitoring her, the commander realizes that she's not the one. In the morning, Mikhail discovers that his costume was washed and has shrunk. When Giovanna arrives, Mikhail confronts her for ruining his costume. She argues that it needs washing, and the boy yells that he hates her. She turns back to him, not noticing how his scream cracked the glass behind her. Mikhail then reveals he knows she's not his mother and flees while the glass shatters behind Giovanna. In the lab, Biondo pushes Stella into a room where she finds Martino and Brando. At the shore, Mikhail throws stones to relieve his anger when the blind man, Andrei, approaches him and reveals the suit is powerless. He assures the boy that he didn't kidnap Stella, but Mikhail wonders how the stranger knows his thoughts. This is when Andrei reveals that he's Mikhail's birth father. He used to have a regular life in Russia until the nuclear accident gave him the ability to read people's minds, thus turning him into one of the specials. However, a paramilitary group called the Division abducted them for scientific experiments. As they used their power, it also affected their health, thus Andrei losing his eyesight. Then he met Yelena, Mikhail's birth mother, who possessed the invisibility power. They were the only specials that weren't barren, so they had a son. Fearing Mikhail would be taken from them, the couple escaped, but Biondo and his men followed them. Outnumbered, Yelena distracted their pursuers while Andrei left with Mikhail. She used her invisibility to fight them, but Biondo managed to shoot her. Since the Division is after him, Andrei knew he couldn't protect his son, so he left Mikhail with Giovanna, whose mind showed him that she was good and wanted a child. Sensing that the boy despises her, Andrei tells him not to. He then reads a nearby fisherman's mind, who's planning to alert the police, thinking that Andrei is kidnapping Mikhail. In her office, Giovanna worries about Mikhail when her colleague alerts her about a call. Meanwhile, Andrei explains that because Mikhail's growing up, his power is also developing, hence the nosebleeds. His father assures him that he'll eventually learn to control this power. To avoid detection, Andrei then erases the fisherman's memory. Afterward, he gives his son a suit that responds to his invisibility. Andrei also cautions him about the Division but assures Mikhail that he'll be there when he needs help. Just then, Giovanna and her colleagues arrive, and the fisherman claims he doesn't remember anything. Still, this allows Giovanna to speak with Mikkel, who's still mad at her. Since she needs to pick up Mario from the vet, Giorgio offers to drive her son home. In their cell, Stella concludes that their captors chose them because of their talents. Determined to escape, she hatches a plan. Upon arriving home, Mikkel puts on the new suit and conceals it from Giorgio. While drinking tea, he notices the bandage on the man's wrist and realizes he's the kidnapper whom Mario bit. Scared, Mikkel runs, but the house is locked, so he hides in the kitchen. Out of options, he removes his regular clothing and becomes invisible. The pursuer sees the empty kitchen, which confirms that Mikkel is Andrei and Yelena's son. To deter him, the invisible boy throws knives at the man before escaping. However, Giorgio throws flour around to track the boy to his room. Capturing him, he promises to help Mikkel enhance his powers. However, the boy kicks him and escapes through the fire exit. Upon seeing Ivan with his motorbike, Mikkel gets on the vehicle and orders him to escape. Confused, the kid drives away. When they reach an abandoned warehouse, Ivan decides he won't take orders from an invisible man, so he tries punching his passenger. Mikkel easily dodges him and reveals his face. When Giovanna arrives home, she sees the chaos. Suddenly, Andrei visits her. Meanwhile, Stella climbs on Martino and Brando to reach a hatch. Climbing outside, she evades the guards but notices an elderly man, Artilio, in a room. Elsewhere, Mikkel reveals to Ivan that Giorgio is the kidnapper, but his classmate is skeptical because he's familiar with psychologists due to his attention disorder. Mikkel explains that Giorgio isn't a real psychologist, and they must save their friends from him. Meanwhile, Stella climbs through the starboard and draws on the ship's searchlight before turning it on. Mikkel sees the smiley face from Stella's light from afar, so he and Ivan rush in its direction. However, a guard sees Stella and drags her back inside. The boys witness this when they arrive, so they devise a plan. Armed with a paintball gun, Ivan shoots the control unit and activates the alarm. With the guards distracted, Mikkel passes through while invisible. When Biondo checks what's happening, Mikkel sneaks in undetected. He then sees Giorgio and Biondo monitor Andrei and Giovanna, who now knows the truth. When Mikkel's suit reacts to the metal, Giorgio hears it and turns to investigate. Seeing nothing, he just asks to see Stella. After a while, Mikkel sees Biondo return the girl to her cell and leaves. When a guard passes by, Mikkel knocks him out with a fire extinguisher. The man's comrade arrives, so the boy holds him at gunpoint, demanding they free his friends. When the trio is free, Mikkel locks the men inside and reveals himself to his classmates. Before escaping, however, Stella asks Mikkel to save Artilio, whom she believes is a prisoner like them. Terrified, Brando and Martino leave while Stella insists on helping Mikkel. For her protection, he hands her the gun before turning invisible. Outside, Giovanna and Andrei spot Ivan, allowing the latter to read his mind to discover where Mikkel is. Meanwhile, Stella leads Mikkel to find Artilio, but they got locked inside a room. She then points the gun at him while Biondo and Artilio appear. When the latter touches Stella, she faints, and the elderly man explains that he controlled her and Giorgio's minds to get to Mikkel. Enraged, Mikkel turns invisible and fights the guards, but he retreats when Artilio threatens to shoot Stella. With that, they trigger the ship to self-destruct while they escape on a submarine. Artilio reveals that Yelena is alive and is waiting for Mikkel since the specials now control the division. In the port, Giovanna frees Martino and Brando before searching for Mikkel and Stella. Instead, she finds Giorgio, who claims he has no memory of how he got there. Andrei assures her that Giorgio's telling the truth and that Mikkel isn't there anymore. They rush outside just as the ship explodes. As the guard puts Stella in the safety capsule, Artilio says that Mikkel has nothing in common with ordinary people like her. Instead, he and the specials are his family. However, this angers Mikkel, so he uses his mind to attack Biondo and his troops, breaking the submarine's interior. Scared, Artilio says that Yelena will be disappointed, but Mikkel believes his mother is dead, so he escapes to the surface with Stella. As the authorities help the kids recover, Mikkel reveals his invisibility to everyone and clears Giorgio's name. Upon seeing Andrei, Mikkel follows him, knowing what his father plans to do. He tries to persuade him not to erase everyone's memory because he doesn't want things to return to normal, but the man argues that it's for his son's safety. The boy then wonders why Stella was kidnapped when the group only wants him, but Andrei says it doesn't matter. Mikkel sees Stella outside, so he goes to her, hoping for a moment before she forgets. The girl kisses him, assuring him that she won't forget him. With that, Andrei starts erasing the memories of everyone who knows his son's powers. Soon, Giovanna is declared the hero, despite not recalling how she found the kids. Candela still knows that Mikkel is the real hero, but the boy is content that his mom gets the recognition. At school, the students celebrate the return of their schoolmates. Mikkel is about to follow Stella when Ivan and Brando block him. Unfazed, Mikkel assures Ivan that his attention disorder can be managed, and advises Brando to direct his rage to his father. This leaves the bullies stunned. Mikkel then catches up to Stella. However, she refuses to be celebrated for getting kidnapped, so she walks away. When he sneezes, she seems to remember him and invites him to walk together, and Mikhail accepts. Elsewhere, a soldier informs his general that the mission failed. Yelena suddenly appears and punches him, pissed. When he adds that they found the girl in Morocco, she lets him leave. Yelena then remembers that Andrei took their twins with him, so she longs to meet her children again.